Nicole Elliott with Studio Elliott FOCUS. Today I'm going to talk about the difference between in-person sales and online sales and what has worked best for me and my experience in the last 19 years in this industry. So stay tuned. Okay, so in-person sales, what does that even look like? What does that even mean? Now, this is kind of an area where a lot of people have always shied away from because they just say, I'm not really a salesperson, so I don't even know what I'm doing. I'm just going to stay away from meeting my client in person and helping them through that sales process. What you're not realizing though, with doing in-person sales is that sometimes people want to be sold. Okay, actually a lot of times people want to be sold. They want to be helped through that process, right? And so if that in any way fits your business model, if you're the type of photographer that's really hands-on, talks to them about their photo shoots, is not just the let's text everything photographer till the day that we actually meet, and that's the first time you're ever having any real conversation with them. I mean, if you know, you kind of have to define who you are as a photographer and or who you want to be. So that in-person sales photographer is going to be the type of photographer that really wants to give their client an all-around experience. They want to be able to say, I'm going to roll out the red carpet for you, and I really want to hold your hand through this entire process. Now, just because you're doing in-person sales doesn't mean you have to be a phenomenal salesperson. It just means you have to believe in what you're doing enough to make them believe in what you're doing. All sales is a transference of emotion. If you believe in something super passionately, you can make somebody else believe in that just as passionately. And so that's really all sales is. So having them come into your home or having them, you know, I know some photographers that will meet at some coffee shop or wherever. Either way, you are bringing them in front of a laptop or in front of a big screen TV, and you're showing them their gallery in person. You are scheduling a date where they come to your home or, like I said, go to that coffee shop, and you're just walking them through that entire experience. Now, usually, when you do in-person sales, you have a printing lab that you are already working with. So everything is really done through you. So instead of just saying, I'm going to hand off this CD of images or email you the JPEG files and you just do everything on your own, or even saying, here's a gallery online, figure it out on your own. What you are saying is, come to my home. I will help you figure this out. I will print it out through me. I will deliver it to your home, and you really don't have to do anything. And so you are really giving that person that white glove experience where you're saying, I just want to give you, because you've come to my studio, you are very valued and I'm giving you all of my time and attention. That's kind of what an in-person sales studio looks like. Any in-person sales photographer that I've known, an average order is always higher than just giving it to them on some sort of a thumb drive or just doing online sales, because bringing them through that sales process, you personally will always sell more than them just seeing it on just a little screen at their home. People will never usually order anything bigger than an 8x10, and they'll usually not want to order something bigger than the screen they're viewing it on. So if you can get them viewing it on a big screen, a big TV, they're usually going to want to order more. If you can show them bigger canvases on the walls, if you can have your home or bring samples with you that show larger prints, then you're going to sell larger prints. Okay, people have to see this stuff first in order to think, oh, that's really cool. I want that in my home. But if all they've ever seen is just a bunch of 8x10s and 5x7s in people's homes, and now it's really coming to nothing is even printed anymore. It's just all on your phone, on your Facebook account, on Instagram. That's all people are really seeing with prints. With files, really. I shouldn't even say prints. So it's up to you to set the standard of what you want your client to purchase from you. If you want your client to purchase canvases, medals, framed portraits, if you want your client to purchase that, you got to show them that, okay? So then what starts to happen is, because you know what you want to ultimately sell, you want to know what your end result is, now you shoot, the entire process of shooting is for the end result. People leave my studio and they buy canvases, they buy large 60, 50-inch portraits for their home, because that's what they see and that's what I convey to them in the entire process of their coming to me. It's on my website. It's when I speak to them, when they do a consultation, they're seeing it on my walls. It's just very clear that is what my end goal is for them. I want to create art for their family that can be displayed in their home that will last for generations. You know, I heard a quote once. They said, no grandmother ever said, I can't wait to pass down this JPEG file to my granddaughter. You know, what they say is, I can't wait to pass down this canvas to my children. And one day they're going to fight for this. My kids are going to fight over who gets this canvas in their home, you know? So that's ultimately, that was my goal. That was my end goal for my client. I want to create heirloom art for them. So because of that, I set my entire studio, my entire business platform, the way that I do business and communicate with my clients, my website, everything communicates that end goal, right? So you kind of need to start there. What is your end goal for your client? And then you create a business based off of that, a business model, a business platform. Everything is based off of your end goal for your client. Okay, so I think that's where a lot of photographers, they don't ever process through that step. They don't ever think, what is the end goal for my client? And what do I ultimately want for them to have in their home? So that's kind of unpacking the in-person sales just really briefly. Because that is how I have really moved forward and seen my business really, really grow and been really profitable in that area, I am going to do a whole nother video that just talks about that. I want to go into Pro Select and what that even means, how to use Pro Select. People literally come sit down in my studio and I show them they send me pictures of their walls in their home, and I show them what canvases, what metals, what different canvas groupings can look like on the walls in their home, because I have those pictures. So I have this whole software that shows them. It's super cool. So I'm going to dive into that one day and just unpack that, I think, pretty soon here in these next few weeks. So stay tuned for that. But now the opposite, I have also done online sales where I put an online gallery. You can use places like SmugMug or Pixiest, Shootproof. You know, these are places that you can upload your gallery online, and then people can order from there, and then it goes straight into your lab. So it's connected to a lab, and then the lab sends them the prints directly from the lab. So that is a much easier way to do things, right? You are not bringing them into your home or your studio, or not having to meet with them at a coffee house to sell them their prints, to show them all this stuff. You know, so there's a lot less time involved in that. And some photographers that works really well for, because they just don't have the time to put into having to sell them in that way. And you know, or they just are intimidated by that, so they just never want to move forward in that direction. Because of that, those average orders are a lot less. You're going to, you know, 300 to maybe, I don't know, 400 or 500 would be like, 500 would be like a really high number for an online sales. Now, it depends on how you go about doing that. But that's about an average that I have seen working with different people and just even my own experience. And that also depends on how you price everything. It could be a lot less. you'd be happy to get $200 out of an online sale. So yeah, that's pretty broad. It depends on what you're pricing each individual thing as. But an in-person sale, average orders, I've seen them all up to $30,000 and as low as $1,500. So in-person sales is a lot. The profit margin is a lot higher when you're actually sitting in front of them, selling them a product, putting forth that effort. So you have to kind of decide, what effort do I want to put into actually selling my product? It's one thing to love to shoot. It's one thing to love to edit. It's another thing to want to sell your pictures, but selling it is where you make the money. It's not enough to just say, I can take pictures and I can edit semi well, and just put them online. It's also, there's a certain element of selling. So even if you're doing the online selling, I would encourage you to also have a phone conversation with them where you are talking through all of the different price points. You're talking through what the sizes are, what they look like, because someone will see a 16 by 20 or a 20 by 30, and they're not really sure, like, well, how big is that really? Then they got to go take the tape measure out. And if they even put forth that effort to do that on their wall, so just having those conversations with them, even on the phone, is a great way to sell it. But either way, you can really never get away from selling your final product. I feel like that is the area where a lot of photographers just want to take their hand out of it because they feel intimidated by the selling process. But you have to sell it. You have to just put yourself out there and say, I believe in the product that I've created for you, and it is going to create memories for you for years to come. These are heirloom pieces for your home. Having them understand even the effort that goes into each and every print is huge. Overcoming that's way too expensive, I can't afford that. Or, there's a photographer for everyone. There's going to be the $60 photographer, and there's going to be the $10,000 photographer, and everywhere in between, and so you kind of have to decide, where do you want to lie within that boundary, and not that you have to be super expensive, but you shouldn't be super cheap. That I will say. Okay, your time is valuable. Your time away from your family is valuable. The time invested into your equipment is money spent. The time invested into learning, the time sitting down right here, all of these 12 minutes so far, if you've stayed along with me to this point, that is all time that you are investing, and that is worth something, and your prices should reflect that. Now, if you're not investing time, if you're just saying, I just like photography, I'm just going to do this shoot, you've never really learned how to actually shoot well, you've never learned to shoot, with at least aperture priority, where you have a lot more control of your camera, if you've never really learned how to edit images, then that's another thing, then you're selling your stuff for really cheap because you don't have a lot of time invested into it. But at that point, I would ask you, why are you doing this in the first place if you're not wanting to give an absolute phenomenal product and be the top photographer in your industry, right? You should always strive to be unique and to stand apart and to be excellent in what you're doing. You should always be striving to learn more and to grow. You should never be okay with just good enough. That's never okay. If you want to make money in this industry, you have to put the time and effort into learning and growing, right? So online sales, awesome. And it's really great for the photographer that doesn't have the time or that might not want to invest the time into doing a more in-person sales approach. That just might be the season of your life. I did that first before I did in-person sales. And so that was a really great platform for me, a really good starting off point to just get into the industry. But probably a year after is when I started to do in-person sales, and I've just never not done that because that's really my business model. So in online sales, I think is awesome too. Getting into any of these online platforms is just a really great way to just get started in the industry without the intimidation of, well, I don't have a studio, or I don't really want to meet people at a coffee house, without having to do those things. Get into any of those 3 places that I had mentioned, and there's many more. Just Google them; they'll pop up everywhere. How to sell your images online and many different platforms. But I still would encourage you to sell it. Still have a conversation with them. Let them know what each size is and about how big they are and how you see it. You might say, well, this is a super close-up shot. Like me right now, looking at me and my crop here, it's mostly all face. This is like, you would probably not want this type of a shot as a big, huge canvas because it's just one big face. But you would maybe want this crop for like an 8 by 10 or 11 by 17 or 11 by 14. You might want this crop for something smaller. Now, let's say you've got this cool shot where they're in the distance and they've got like this gorgeous flowing dress, and you've got all of, and then maybe they're in a field and you've got the sunset behind them, and it's a really panoramic shot, and it's got a lot of other elements in the shot. That's your canvas. That's your 20 by 30 or larger. That's your bigger print right there. So they don't know that, right? Printing that on a 5 by 7 or 8 by 10 would be, it's tiny. Your little person is so tiny, and not that you can't do it, but just having them understand, well, this image would be great in this size. And now talking about sizing for their home and all of that type of stuff. So I encourage you, even if you're doing online sales, sell it to them. Have a conversation with them. Okay. So that is just short, kind of just unpacking both ends. I hope that encourages you guys. Again, I will do another video just because my strength has been using Pro Select. It's been using just that in-person sales, and really we're in an industry where right now nobody is doing that. So nobody is really teaching how to do in-person sales, and I would like to teach you how to do it and how to use that effectively to make good money within your industry. I mean, I started off being so excited to make $300 on an order, and I'm like, yay, I made $300. And then to where in-person sales last year, $15,000 in one order, and I am freaking out because that's just so awesome because I grew to that level. And so and that was sort of every year I said, I want to create a different price point. My average sales, this is what I want it to be. And so I changed pricing. I changed different structures within my business to get to that goal. Then next year, this is now, I want my average sales to be this much. Then I restructured things, restructured marketing, everything, my website, everything to reflect that. Then I kept doing that year by year by year to where the last year, I was in photography. I'm not doing it anymore this year, but the last year I was doing photography heavily. It was just awesome, and I was so blessed by it. And so I want to unpack that for you guys and just tell you how that came about with me. So subscribe to my YouTube channel and just comment below and share it, and follow me on Facebook and Instagram and all that fun stuff. Anyway, hope you're blessed by this today, and stay tuned. Lots more coming up. See you guys.